Chapter 6. After church, I saw Joe Chepnigny out in the backyard. I went over to talk to him. "Hey, Joe," I said, "guess what hatched out of my egg?" "A duck?" Joe asked. "Nope." "A turkey?" "Nope." "I'll give you a hint. It's got 4 legs." Joe looked at me and wrinkled up his face. "2 ducks." I could see that it wasn't going to get anywhere that way, so I told him, "It's a dinosaur, a real little live dinosaur. What do you think of that?" Go on," Joe said. "Who are you kidding?" "Honest, it is. Come on over and look at it. It's got little horns on its face and everything." We went across the street into our backyard and squatted down by the dinosaur nest. Joe didn't see him at first, but then his eyes got accustomed to the dark. "Jeepers, it's a big lizard," he said, kind of drawing back a little. "You mean that all came out of that egg? Is he poisonous? He sure looks poisonous to me." "I don't know," I said. "I hadn't thought of that before. I'd have to ask Dr. Zymer about it. He didn't seem poisonous." "What you gonna feed him?" Joe wanted to know. "I don't know that either," I said. "But I'll find out, and then I'll tame him, and he'll be about the only pet dinosaur in the whole world, I bet." "That's no dinosaur," Joe Chepnigny said. "It's just a big lizard. Where'd you get the idea it was a dinosaur anyway?" "Dr. Zymer said it was. And he's a paleo something, and he works in a museum and knows all about dinosaurs and things like that. Really, he does. He knew the egg was going to hatch, and he knew what kind of an egg it was, too." Joe put his hands on his hips and shook his head slowly back and forth. "You know what I think?" he said. "He's just making fun of you. These summer people think they're awful smart, and they think that just because we live up here in Freedom, New Hampshire, we don't know anything. They think we're all suckers for jokes like this. That's what my dad says." Just then, we heard Joe's mother calling him. "Jeepers," Joe said, "I forgot all about the stove wood. See you later." I didn't agree with what Joe said about Dr. Zymer. He didn't look like the kind of man who'd play a trick like that. And he looked too excited when he first saw the thing. And he sent a telegram to Washington, too. Or at least he had us send one. After dinner, Dr. Zymer drove up in his car. He walked out to the backyard where I was sitting watching the dinosaur. "Hello there, Nate," he said. "How is our little freak? Still living?" He bent down and looked inside the box to make sure for himself. "Yes, sir, he looks fine. Probably hungry, too. We'd better get him his first meal, Nate." "What does he eat?" I said. "Do we have to feed him milk out of a baby's bottle?" Dr. Zymer laughed at that. "Oh, no, Nate. We don't have to bottle feed a dinosaur. You see, dinosaurs are reptiles like snakes and turtles. And when they hatch out of the egg, they're all ready to eat the same kind of food that adults eat. The kind of dinosaur the Triceratops is a grass eater. So all we have to do is keep him supplied with grass or leaves or lily pads or lettuce and a few small pebbles every now and then." "Pebbles?" I said. "Does he eat pebbles?" Dr. Zymer smiled. What kind of teeth does a chicken have, Nate? Doesn't have teeth, I said. They just have little stones in their gizzard. Say, do you mean a dinosaur has a gizzard like chickens? Some of them do. When scientists dug up dinosaur bones, they sometimes found a pile of smooth stones right in the middle of the dinosaur skeleton. They didn't know what they were at first until it suddenly dawned on them that they were gizzard stones. Some of the stones were as big as a man's fist. Seems funny for an animal to have a gizzard, I said. No funnier than for a chicken to have one, is it? Well, let's try him out on some grass and some leaves and see which he likes better. We picked up some maple leaves from the tree in the yard, and I got a handful of grass from outside the fence. We put them down in two piles, grass in one and the leaves in the other, and we carefully put the nest box on its side so the dinosaur could come out if he wanted to. Then we sat down and watched. The little dinosaur saw the piles of food, I guess, because he started right out for them. His legs looked kind of wobbly at first, and he stumbled around a little. When he came out into the sunshine, he blinked, but he kept right on going. The first pile he came to was the grass. He put his head right down into that green grass and started swallowing away. I guess he likes grass all right, I said. The little fellow kept right on swallowing until the handful of grass was all gone. All that was left was a blade of grass hanging out of the corner of his mouth, which he hadn't noticed yet. Then he wobbled over to the pile of leaves and started in on that. I guess he likes the leaves too, Dr. Zymer said. Look at him eat, will ya? He's just about finished it up already. I ran over and I got some more grass and another handful of leaves. Put them all together in one pile, Dr. Zymer said, and then we'll see what he picks out first. But he didn't stop to pick things out. He just ate his way through the pile, and when it was all gone, he stood on 3 legs and scratched his neck with his hind leg. Then he walked over to a smooth, sunny place and laid down. Well, Dr. Zymer said, with an appetite like that, he's going to have us humping to keep him supplied with food. Too bad we can't put him in a pasture, but he's too small for that. He'll crawl through the fence, and maybe the goat would hurt him. She's a gentle goat, I said. She wouldn't even hurt a kitten. Maybe not a kitten, but a dinosaur is something different. Animals can get excited when they see something they haven't come across before. So can people, I guess. We better wait till this little fella gets bigger before we put him in the pasture. By the way, we ought to be keeping a record of his growth. Do you happen to have some scales in the house? Sure, we have some in the kitchen. Mom doesn't ever use them. Shall we carry him in and weigh him? Well, perhaps it would be a better policy to bring the scales out here, Dr. Zymer said. Women often have a prejudice against reptiles, and we wouldn't want to cause any trouble. See if you can borrow the scales for a while. I ran in and got the scales. When I told Mom what they were for, she said I could keep the scales outside. She didn't want to have anything in her kitchen that creature had touched. I guess Dr. Zymer was right. We put the scale down on the ground, and I went over to pick up the animal. He had a bluish skin like a leopard's,